everyone, it's Pam from GlamJunkJournals, and we are continuing on today in my series of creating a junk journal from a vintage book. And this particular episode, we are going to be creating the spine for our junk journal and attaching the signatures. And I wanted to say in the beginning, this is just how I have learned over the years to create the spine and attach the signatures. I know there's a ton of different ways. This is just what works for me. So let me recap what we did in the last episode and show you what I did off camera. So I've got my 3 signatures here. As you guys remember, let me adjust the light. It's always weird up here. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. All right, so we've got our 3 signatures, and each one has some sort of fabric as the cover. So each of the signatures is going to have some fabric over it. And what I did off camera, let me move the other ones out of the way here, is I added, I think I went over this with you guys, but I added some of my snippet roll to the side here, and this is just a page that is folded up and it creates a pocket, and I put a little tag in there that I was just messing around with, so that's going to go in there, although, well, let me put it back in there for now. All right, so let's see, let's go through real quick. I attached some fabric on the side here. I probably will do a little more embellishing around the edges. But another thing that I did do, as you can see, let's see, is I did sew around most of the pages. All of the pages that have any sort of embellishment on them, I did sew around the edges here. So that is that. And then if you remember in the last episode, we did the fabric fold over pocket, which I'm absolutely in love with. So you're going to stick some ephemera or an envelope or, you know, tag, journaling book, whatever you want underneath. But on the other side, the fold over, what I decided to do is take the rest of my snippet roll and I cut it down and I glued half on here and half on here. So that just continues on the theme that I got going for the center signature, and I think it just brings the 2 sides together. So that's what I did with that. And I think that's all for this first signature. Oh, I did add a little bit. This is just a fussy cut vine, which I thought looked good. So that is that one. And let me go through the other 2, see if there's anything that I did here. I did add, you know, a little bit of lace to bring this lace over to this side to bring the page together. And I added a teeny bit of ribbon along the bottom. I did create another fabric pocket, and I added a bunch of ribbon and fabric and trim along this side. And I put some boho trim on the bottom, and then just a little applique, and this is a pocket right up at the top. And I did show in the last episode how I create the fabric pockets, and just added some more lace. Really, the summary is I like to sew around all the edges of anything that has any lace or any embellishments that I want to make sure are secured. If you don't have a sewing machine, I would just make sure that the embellishments are secured down with some heavy duty glue. So along that side, you know, a little bit of trim there, scrunched up piece of ribbon, you know, that kind of thing. So that is all for that one. And then the last guy here, let's see what I did on this one. I don't remember what I did. This is the pocket that we created in the last episode. I love that. So I don't know if I added anything. Oh, yes, I did. My little snippet roll that I made in my snippet roll series, I added some of the colors of this journal, the peach and the yellow and the blue-green, and I just love how that brings that whole page to life. And this I did glue on with some Fabri-Tac, and it's very secure on there. And then there's the center of the signature there. And I did add a little bit of trim along the bottom of this collaged pocket page. And like I said, I did sew around the edges. Okay, so that's the recap. So let's get into creating our spine. So when you get to this point, you have to figure out how big your spine is going to be. And I know just from past experience that mine are big. Just saying. Oh, and I wanted them in a special order, and I'll tell you why. If you look, this, excuse me, this handkerchief, oh, what am I trying to say? Back up the truck. Okay. This is the only fabric cover for the signature that has a tie. So I wanted that in the center. So that's what I was trying to say here. And I like the way that looks just in the beginning of the journal against this page. So that is going to be the first signature. Here's our second signature. Here's our third. So looking at the sides of the signatures, it's pretty big, just saying. So if I was to measure this, which I did, it is almost 3 inches. So I'm going to go with a 3-inch spine. So what I always do before I create the actual spine is I measure, and I also factor in adding more embellishments. Now, granted, this looks great and it could be finished after we put the signatures into the spine, but I like to add tags and maybe, you know, journaling books and a lot more ephemera. So that's going to make it even thicker. So this is a little under 3 inches. So I'm going to go with 3 inches. And, you know, if it gets a little bit of the alligator mouth, I'm okay with that, just because I like all the embellishments. So let's get into it. What you're going to need to do after you measure the width that your spine is going to be, I create templates. And what I like to do is just cut a piece of cardboard. Now this is just from a, this wasn't Amazon, but this was a cardboard box that I got something delivered in. And I made it 3 inches wide and exactly the height of my book. So there you go. So if you look at that, that's going to be my spine. Okay. And I think I got ahead of myself. I'll explain the template in a minute. Okay, so we're going to move that out of the way. Then what you're going to need is, how do you attach this to this and make it look good? Well, I have found the perfect fabric. And I know a lot of other YouTubers have used Tyvek, which is great, but I don't have access to Tyvek. It's a construction material that you put on the sides of homes, and actually our home right to the east of us, they're getting siding put on, and it's like a plastic fabric that holds up really well, and I'm not into construction, so, you know, that's a pretty lame explanation, but I don't have access to Tyvek. I could have walked over there and said, "Hey, construction worker, can I have a yard of your Tyvek?" And they would have looked at me like, "What the heck? Who is this lady?" Right? I've checked Home Depot, I've checked Lowe's, and unless you want to buy a boatload of Tyvek, you can't just get enough for a journal. So that's my whole little spiel on Tyvek. But I found something that works. Check this out. This material is made out of polyester and polyurethane. And if you can see, on one side it's kind of shiny, and the other side it's more of a material. You know what this is, you guys? I went through Hobby Lobby and I asked a couple of the salespeople. I explained to them what I was looking for, and they're kind of like, what? But we found this. This was in the nursery section, you know, where they have all the baby and nursery fabrics and, you know, stuff if you're creating things for a nursery. This was used, or is supposedly what it's made for, is the diaper plastic that you put over a cloth diaper. Do you guys remember those? Not the disposable diaper era, but before, like when you use cloth diapers, you used to have the little pants that you put over to prevent leaks, not to create leaks, to prevent leaks. That's what this is. You guys, this is diaper pant material, I guess, if you want to call it that. And it's the best thing ever. I thought, oh my God, where has this been all my life? So anyways, I'll put a link in the description of what it is, and you can get it at Hobby Lobby, and it's cheap. So that being said, I've got enough for all the journals, probably for the rest of my life. All right, so I'm gonna move that out of the way. That's my spiel on that. Okay, so, one other thing that I've seen, I'm trying to give you guys some options for what to use. I have also used plastic tablecloths, you know, for outside when, you know, it might rain or something and you're having a picnic, where one side is cloth and the other side is more plastic. Those work good too. So basically what you're looking for is something strong like this. See, it doesn't rip, but flexible. See, it stretches. So, okay, so what I've done, oh man, I was really excited when I found that, by the way. All right, let me move these out of the way here. Okay, so this is gonna be how these all get attached together. So what I did was I cut a piece of that material a little bit larger than my spine, as you can see. And let me see how much this is. So this is 3 inches, and it's 1 inch on each side. Okay, so this is 5 inches across. And so you want it just about 1 inch larger than your spine. And you also want it to fold over and cover the inside like that. See what I did? So it's going to be a little over twice as long as this piece of cardboard, which is your spine. Okay, that being said, let's glue this together. All right, and I have found that Fabric Tack works great. So you need a liquid adhesive glue for this. And we are just gonna go to town. And we're gonna put a generous amount. And don't worry about the glue globs on this, because this is all gonna be covered. So what I like to do is I like this little fold over to be towards the bottom of my journal. That way it's more hidden, but it doesn't really matter, because we're going to be covering this with some fabric, so never mind. All right, but just to be consistent here, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to turn that over and stick it down. I don't like to stick it all the way to the bottom, because I do like a little fold up on the edge, because I feel it makes it more secure. All right, so we're gonna stick that down. And it doesn't matter if it's exact on each side, but try to get it relatively even. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a generous amount along each side of the spine. And then, you know, just along the sides. And this is where your book is gonna attach. Make sure I got the right deal here. And you want it pretty darn close to the spine. So we're gonna stick that down. And we're gonna stick this side down. All right. And then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna glue all across, get that a little bit above, you know, where it's gonna fold down over the spine here. Get in the cracks there, and then a generous amount, and just go to town, right? Okay, get some down there. I'm gonna pull this down. Like that, and smooth it out. And that's where I'm going to get my little wallpaper spreader doodad and just kind of smush it, kind of, you know, get it into the spine a little bit. Like that. Make sure it's flat. I'm just going to make sure it's all pretty, it's pretty dang secure on there, but we will add some more onto the sides here. I just want to get into those creases. Let's see. And then what I like to do while it's like this is just fold it up a little bit to make sure that it's lying flush against the sides like that. You see what I mean? See, like this, there's a little bulge there. Just kind of smush it into the spine like that. That works really good. Now we're gonna flip this up. And do the same thing. We're gonna add some glue. And we're gonna fold it up. And I like to pull it tight, but not so tight that it starts buckling or anything like that. Just make sure it's flat on there. I'll take a little wallpaper guy, poke it in there. And what I found before, and I'm just going to share this from experience here, you do want this to be able to move. I've glued them so much sometimes that they don't move. It's like stuck like this. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work when your journal is when you try to close and open your journal. So, you know, I have just made it a point to make sure it moves. And then along the sides, I'm going to get some more in here. It doesn't look like I had enough. And this is just where, you guys, this is just where you're going to have to, you know, work with your glue and make sure that there's enough there. I'm going to do the same on this side. See, because that's still moving around in there. So I have to make sure that it's all stuck together, and it doesn't feel like this one is stuck that well, does it? So let's see what we got going on the other side here. I'm gonna have to make sure that this is stuck down, see? And it was moving. Oh, so you're gonna run into this, and this is by no means, you know, anything that you got to worry about, but this is just what happens sometimes. All right, so we're gonna get that all glued down really well there. All right, do the other side here. Make sure that is glued down. See how that sticks up on the side? I'm gonna have to glue that also. And this does take a little bit to dry. So I am going to let this dry because, like I said before, the more I mess with stuff, the more when it should be drying, the more I seem to make it worse. So there you go. All right, so we're going to flip that over and we're going to fold that in again. See how that started to do that? Like this, right like that. And then on this side, the same deal. All right, so from there, I am going to let this dry because, like I said, the more I mess with it, the more it gets all screwed up. All right, so I'm going to move this out of, well, no, I'm not going to move this out of the way. Okay, tons of different ways to cover this because, as you can tell, that's not a good look for a journal. So I like to use some of the fabric that has been used in my journal onto the spine. Now this is what you are going to see. So I chose this lovely fabric, and I don't even know which side looks better, you know, because this is one of those where it looks good on both sides. And I cut it a little bit larger, as you can tell, than the plastic, because I want the plastic covered, right? Right. But I cut it the same length. So it's going to be as tall as the journal and back over with a little bit of fold over so that if you don't have a fold over, you're going to have something that looks like this on the bottom, right? If it's just flush to the end. And I don't like that. I don't want that showing. So that's why you want it a little bit longer. So I am going to stop the camera for just a moment and let this dry, and then I'll be back, and then we're going to add the next, we're going to add the fabric. So hold on just a moment. Okay, this is sufficiently dried, so we're going to continue on here, and I still haven't decided which side I like up. Oh, I don't know. This is a tough one. I think we're just going to do that side up. So same procedure here is we're going to glue the fabric onto the same area as, you know, our spine that we created. All right, so I am going to position this. Let's check it out here. And this is where I was talking about the little fold over. So I am going to position my fabric, see, because it's a little larger than the plastic wrap, or whatever you want to call it, plastic material, so that you don't see it. And then this little fold up here, you can make it, you know, as close as to that other edge as you want. I like a little bit of overlap, just like what I said, so that when you're looking at the side of the journal, you don't see that plastic. All right, so we are going to just glue down. Now this fabric that I'm using, I would suggest using a thicker fabric. This is almost not quite an upholstery thickness, but I wouldn't advise on using a real silky fabric for this, because I don't think it'll hold up well. And you can see the glue, and it's not a sturdy enough fabric. So definitely a cotton fabric or something that has a little more heft. All right, so we're gonna just flip this down, sure it looks pretty even. And I spreaded, what's the word, spreaded? I spread out the glue underneath so that I didn't get any large glue globs. You guys saw me doing that. All right, so there is one side. I'm gonna flip it over and do the other side here. And you know, this cover was what drew me to this journal in the first place, or you know, this book, to make this journal. And I am going to cover up some of these little scrollies, but that's the only way I could figure out how to create the spine. I don't know. So that's okay. All right, that looks pretty good there. And I'm going to spread it out with the finger here. All right, get that off my finger. And then, you know, pull it tight down here. So, and then make sure it's laying flat, which it is. That looks really cool. I'm gonna flip it back over, and then we're just gonna do the little fold up here. And I'm gonna get the edges here. And then I will go through and secure down the sides here. And then we're also going to use this to get our little creases for our book. Pull that up. That looks really good. Yay, yay, yay. All right. So now we're going to do the fold on the side, and hopefully it lays flat. And I'm telling you from experience, you guys, you're just sometimes going to have to, you know, work it. You're going to have to work the fabric because sometimes it doesn't. You just kind of have to manipulate it. And that's just part of the whole creative, you know, process of doing this stuff. And this, I've got to say, is, in my opinion, the most labor-intensive part of making a journal is creating the spine. So I've got to tell you, if you have any questions on what I'm doing here, I'm hoping I'm making this as clear as possible and as easy to follow as, you know, I can. But, you know, if something trips you up, let me know. Let me know, because believe me, it's probably tripped me up too. I'm telling you that. So I'm going to go along the sides here. Come on. And not get too much so that it oozes out of the side, but just enough to secure the sides down. And there again, I'm folding it up to make sure it lies flat. All right, so that side looks good. Let's see about this guy, this side. And I probably will, even though, you know, this is an actual vintage stain, I probably will put something on that later, because I'm looking at that going, you know, I like the distressed look, but I don't like that blob right there. And that's just how the book came. So, oh well. Okay, so there's the inside. As you can see, it's lying flat. And that's what you want. So let's go to the other side. Let's see how it folds here. Now see on this side, see I haven't got enough glue on there. So we're going to do that. And I apologize if I'm flipping around the book a little bit. Sometimes I just have to move it so that I can see it. All right, so I'm getting a generous amount on the side there. And here again, I'm just making it lie flat. There you go. Okay, so there's that side. Same deal on this side. I didn't get enough glue. Come on. I'll run along the inside there. Let's smush it down again. All right. Now that looks like there's something underneath that's folding up. So no, it's just the fabric, it's not flat. So this is where you're gonna have to be fiddly. And I love that term. I've heard that from a couple other YouTubers, and I just think it's so cute. It's fiddly. Sometimes the fabric is fiddly, and you're just gonna have to fiddle with it. It's just the way it is. All right. So that's the way I like to look at my journal cover and the spine there. And see, it's bulging up a little right here. And that's because of the fold that I have. So I'm going to move the fabric out a little bit. And like I said, don't worry about feeling like you're getting tripped up or something's funky here. Something's funky on mine right here. It's not laying flat. There we go. Let's see how it folds up. And this is just what you have to do to make sure it looks good when you're done here. Now I know that spine looks huge, right? That's huge, but it won't look bad when everything is put in there. Now I've got a bump right here. So this is where I think I'm messing too much. I'm messing with it too much because that looks really good, doesn't it? And then that looks good, except I got to get that glued down. All right, so I'm going to put some more glue on this and then let this sit off to the side for a little bit so that it gets secure. Now, what I like to do when I'm setting these things off to the side, I kind of keep it like that so that it, holds the book shape that I want. So I'm going to stick that over to the side, and then we are going to talk about how to add in the signatures. And there's really, I'm hoping that on this video, I'm able to show you, it's hard to film not correctly so that it's easy to follow. So I am just going to do one of the signatures on camera. So I've got them in order. Remember, I want this one on top. So, all right, we're going to do that. So this is where I talked about creating a grid. So basically, this is a piece of cardboard. It's more flimsy than I used for the spine. This can be a piece of cardboard. It can be cardstock, anything, but it mirrors the spine. See that? Ta-da! So this little grid is where you're going to poke your holes for your signature. So what I did was, this was a 3-inch spine, remember? I drew a line directly in half, and then I folded it over and got the exact center. And so that's what those lines are for. And then from there, let me move this out of the way again. So this is the center and the center. You can be as mathematic as you want. I'm not really a math whiz, but so then to add these two, this is going to be for, okay, scratch that. Okay, these lines right here, we're going to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So you need 3 holes. So what I did is from the top and the bottom, I did 1.5 inches in from the top. I didn't do exactly in the center because I like it more towards the outer edge. It seems to hold the pages better. So if I did it exactly in the center, it would be about here. And what I found through experience, that if I attach my signature with the hole right here, the end of my signature down here, it's kind of flapping around. That makes sense. So that's what we're going to use, not only to poke our holes in our cover, but to use to poke our holes in our fabric and our pages. All right, so we're going to find the center of the first signature like this. And you want to look at your pages to see that, you know, your center crease is where it needs to be, and whether you want, you know, your pages to be right in the center or offset a little bit. They can be towards the bottom or the top, it doesn't matter. So just go through and look at your pages to make sure they're all the way you like them, in line. So that's what I'm doing right now. As you can see, this one's a little bit shorter than this one, so I wanted to keep it kind of in the center of the page next to it. All right, so I've got all my pages, right? And they look good. And then I've got my cover, the fabric here. So what I like to do is make sure that is all with the seam right in the center. And you can even take your ruler and kind of push the pages together so that you get a good center crease right there. All right, so we're going to put that like that. And we're going to take your little grid thing, and we're going to use the center of the grid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over right along that center, and you'll see why I'm doing this in a second. Right there, and you put it right in the center. Ha! Yay! Right? And then I use a couple clips to hold it where I want it to be. And then we're going to be doing some hole poking. Some hole poking, you guys. All right, and I look around and see if anything got all weird, like it's sticking out sideways. And then it looks pretty dang good. Now, I like to poke my holes with this. Now, this is a really small screwdriver, and I think since it doesn't have a you know, a flat head or a, what's the other kind of screwdriver? You guys know what I'm talking about. This might even be an awl. So an AWL, awl. And then what I do is I just go ahead and poke through. Now, depending on how thick your signature, your pages are, and if you have a lot of fabric, sometimes you can poke just with your hand going through everything, or you may have to use, if I bump the camera, sorry, a hammer. So I'm gonna hammer, and I apologize if that's loud, because I think that is probably the only way I'm gonna get through the whole thing. Okay, so there's one. So I apologize again for this. And then underneath, I'm not going all the way through to my table, but this is a table that has been covered with some wood paneling, some fake wood paneling, by the way. And then, so it doesn't really mess it up, which is awesome. Okay, from there, we're going to remove this, the little clippy, but we're going to hold the pages together, right? keep them in the same spot. And that's always, trust me, that can be an issue. Ooh, did you hear that? We got some thunder. All right, so I'm going to remove this one. Now you can see my 3 holes. There they are. Yay! All right. Now what I've done in the past, and this is just something that's worked for me, is I like to keep my pages, or I should say my signature together with all the holes. So what I've devised is something to poke in the hole, because when you sew it into your signature, sometimes it's hard to find these holes. So what is this? This is a large paper clip that I, straightened out, and then I just poke it in the holes, and it stays. It's fabulous. I got to get it through the fabric there, but if I don't get it through the fabric, that's okay, because I could figure that out. I just like to use these kind of as placeholders. So there you have it. Okay, so I know that looks weird. I've tried toothpicks. That doesn't work really well. Nails, you could use a nail. I can't really think of anything else that you could put in here. Maybe a needle, but needles I think are kind of small. So this is just what works for me. Something, and you may not need anything depending on how thick your pages are and how many pages you have in your signature. But since I usually have a lot, that's what I do. So I'm going to move this guy out of the way so he's ready to be put in here. But wait, we don't have any holes in here that mirror those holes. So you're going to use the same template, and we're going to do the same thing. Now this is exactly the same size. So let me get another couple clips here. It's where you use a lot of clips too, you guys. These are just the ones that I have, so clip that right in the center. And make sure it's, right in the middle where you want to be. Right? That look good? Yep. Looks good. And then, so if you have 3 signatures, which is what I'm going to have, 1, 2, 3, I'm going to have 3 holes across here, 3 holes across here, and 3 holes down here. And those holes are going to mirror the same holes that I put in my signatures because I'm using the same template. So this one that I poked the holes in is going to be my first signature. All right, so I've got it on the front, right? Oh, and another thing, let me give you guys a heads up. This is the time when you want to think about how your journal is going to close. Are you going to use a tie closure just around the whole outside? That's great. You don't even have to have a closure. That's fine too. But before you attach your signatures into your journal and your spine here, figure out if you want to poke some holes on each side, which is what I usually do. Now, granted, I have a husband who has a huge, garage full of tools. So what I told him to do is drill 2 holes, which is what he did. And I'm going to thread a ribbon through there. Now, if you don't have a husband or he doesn't have tools or anything like that, there's other ways to create these holes. And let me show you that. This is the weirdest looking thing, but it works very cool. But there's a couple caveats on this. And this is a grommet setting tool. And these are my little grommets. And they have the side that has, you know, that little part that sticks up like that. And then they have, let me get one here if I can get it, the flat side. Now, I'm not going to show you how to use this today because on what I found is this particular size of grommet does not work well with this thick of a book. It works with thinner books. So the grommet setting tool is something that I would look into, and I can put a link to something. I don't know if it's the same exact kit as this, but if you follow a YouTube on how to use these, it's a great thing to have. So that being said, I am just going to thread a ribbon through the sides of this, and it's going to look fabulous. So just think about that. How you want your signature, or excuse me, how do you want to close your signature? Okay, from here, we're going to do some hole poking. All right. And I am going to go along all three sides. And let me see, where am I going to do that? I'm going to do that right here. So rather than have you guys listen to all the pounding, put you on hold for just a second. So hold on, done with the pounding. Okay, so I went 3 across 3 times, right? So I'm gonna remove that, and you can see the holes. They're right there. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So these holes are going to line up exactly with my signature. All right, next phase here. And I know, you guys, I know this is going to be a longer video, so be patient and hang with me here. Let me switch the lighting again. We're getting a thunderstorm now. Jeez. All right. Okay, so hang with me. All right. Next thing is the 3-hole pamphlet stitch. There's also 5 and 7-hole pamphlet stitches, which I've used in the past. The 3-hole to me is the most versatile because of the size of my journals. It holds the pages in, but it's not too complicated. So what you're going to need is some sort of thread. Now I use embroidery thread because it is very strong. You could also use twine, just something that's not too thick, but has a lot of strength. So my go-to is embroidery twine. And what I do is I measure the length of my spine and then take it back again and then another half. So 2.5 times the length of your spine. And that'll give you some extra, and you know, you won't be using way too much so that you have to cut a bunch off, and you won't run short, which, trust me, I've done both. Okay, so let's get our signature back out here. All right, so there it is, right? Okay, this is what you have to think of now. I know, a lot of thinking, right? Do you want your little tail, meaning the part is gonna stick out or hang out? Do you want it on the inside or do you want it on the outside? I've done both. You know, a lot of people have it on the inside and then you add like a little bead dangle or some sort of tassel on the end. And I've also done it so that the end is on the outside. And you can also do, you know, add some sort of embellishment or tassel or dangle on the outside. So it's just something you want to think about. And for me, in this particular case, I am going to want my end, if you want to call it that, to be on the outside. So that's where you start, okay? So that's where you make your first poke with your hole. You start in the middle. So there's my middle. There's one there, and one there. And we're going to go up through the spine. And you're going to pull it up so that you've got about that much. You know, I like to give myself a good tail, if you want to call it that, because when I start tightening, this gets shorter and shorter. Okay, so we started in the center, correct? And you got to make sure you're right side up, all that stuff. I'm going to go to the outside of your signature. Now I can see where the hole was poked in my fabric, but I am going to move the fabric out of the way from my pages. I've just found that with fabric that works the best. All right, so I'm going to find that hole and come up through there, right? And then I'm going to find the hole that was made. And granted, you have your little pokies that are holding their place, just holding the pages in place. And you're going to come up through the center. That's where you go first on a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, is the center. So you pull all the way up. I'm going to make sure it is lining up with the hole on the other side. And I still have a tail. And I've seen people tape this so that it doesn't pull all the way through. And that's something that you could do. And I've done that before. Sometimes, you know, after you get experience doing this, it's not as hard as it seems. Because when I first started this, I'm like, what in the heck am I doing? So if you're there, trust me, it's normal. So I'm going to pull this second pokey out, maybe, there you go, and go back through. And that worked really good because all of the pages stayed together so that my needle goes all the way through, no problem, right? But sometimes there are problems. And then I can see where the 2 holes were. I'm going to go back through. And hopefully I'm still in camera here. So we're going to pull all the way through. Right? Now we're back on the back of the spine here. And you take your thread and pull it tight, but not so tight that, you know, you're pulling things out of whack. So we're going to go all the way up to the top and go back through. All right, so there we are. And don't worry if it's looking wonky, it's fine. All right, now, where is my hole? I don't see this particular hole. It looks like it got a little askew. So I'm going to make another one and then go back up through. And that's kind of what's cool about fabric, is it's forgiving. We're going to go back up through and remove my little marker placeholder thing. And we're going to come all the way through. Now at this point, you can remove these. And this is where you're going to tighten everything up. Wait a minute. What am I doing? I'm upside down. That's what I'm doing. Okay. I'm like, oh no, I added the wrong side. That's okay. I've done that too. Everything that can happen, I've done, and there's always solutions. Okay, so back to where we were. Now we're going to go up. So we came back up through. We're going to go back out. We're going to go down through the whole thing and out the same hole that we started with. Push that through. pull it. Now see, my tail is getting a little short, but that's okay. And this is where you can remove your needle. And this is where you want to tighten your page. Now, what I like to do is have one end or one tail underneath the part of the embroidery thread that went across the whole thing. And this is where you want to make sure, and this is, I'm sorry if I have to flip back and forth, but I like to make sure these are very taut. Now see, this one isn't. So I have to pull and tighten some more. And like I said, this part is kind of fiddly, you guys, kind of fiddly. So you just have to work with your thread and pull it tight, but not so tight that you start tearing the pages. And that is the reason for why I like to have in the center of my signature a sturdier page, is for this. Because I've done it with like a tissue paper or a real flimsy or a vintage book page. And once you start tightening, it rips. And I've had to redo the center page of a signature because of that. So let's just see if this looks like it's tight. Feels pretty good. And you can tell just by moving your pages around if they, start going sideways. You'll be able to tell if they're tight or not. All right. And that feels really tight. See that? And then this is where husbands come in handy. You can say, hey, put your, hold that down. Hold the finger right there. But I think I've got it tight enough that I don't have to do that. And then I am just going to tie a knot like that. See? And I do it a couple more times just to make sure it's secure. And then from there is my first signature. Yay. See? Yippee! Look at that. Doesn't it look fabulous? There you go. So I'm going to continue on. I'm going to do the next two signatures the same exact way, and then I'll come back and I'll show you it all together, and we're going to discuss what's coming up next, which I'm very excited about. So hang with me and hold on just a moment. Okay, I am back and all signatures have been sewn in, and let me show you what my book looks like. This looks so good, although I am not finished yet. So here is the spine that we created, and I cut the little extra ends down, and I am going to add something on the top of this. I usually add some sort of fabric or lace or something like that just to cover these up. So that's just a personal preference also. And I'm going to put some further embellishments on the front, and also on the inside I will probably put some sort of fabric or maybe a pocket across here, but the rest of it looks fabulous. Look at this. This is so cool. I just am loving how this turned out. So what my plan is I am going to create some ephemera, and I'll probably make some journaling tags and, put lots of other ephemera in here. So my next video is going to be the flip through, and you'll see the whole thing all finished. And I will add, like I said before, I'm going to do some sort of ribbon tie closure. And along the back here, I was looking at it, and since this is such an old book, I am probably going to do something along the back also, and I haven't figured that out yet. just to cover up some of the stains and things like that along the back cover. But other than that, I think she looks fabulous. So like I said, this was the most labor-intensive part of my series here, creating the spine and attaching the signatures. So I hope you guys learned something, and if you have any questions, any at all, or if, like I said, anything trips you up, just send me a comment, and I will certainly get back to you, because believe me, if you know, you are tripped up about something, I've probably had the same thing happen to me. So I'm always happy to help. So stay tuned for the final, which will be the flip through on my Lady Caprice. I'm excited to get this completed. I'm also beginning to work on a custom order, so I'm not sure when the next episode's going to be, but I'll certainly fit it in soon. So thank you for sticking with me today and watching this video, and if you'd give it a like and subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. So thanks again, everyone, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!